And we have 2 microphones, so does anyone want to kick this off? While you're thinking, I'll reflect. So I was at the heart of, in my last job, I was at the heart of bringing together 73 libraries at Harvard, which is huge, and it's the most decentralized university in North America. And I was meeting with the vice president, and she, smart as a whip, she used to run the New York subway. And she was trying to explain to me how the structure of Harvard, and it was on a piece of paper, yay big, about A1. And in the end, she said, actually, how you work Harvard is you navigate the white spaces. And that's one of the most intriguing and useful things I was ever advised. Anyway, so, right in the middle, Kate, please. Monica, do you see?
I do.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you all. That was really interesting. I have a question for John, because I've heard you talk about this before, about the word service. And I guess going back to the SCONUL report, Mapping the Future of Academic Libraries, one of the things they did identify, they had, Nexus, I think it was Nexus 3, Paragon 7, was service-oriented libraries. And that is a trend, and it's particularly of interest to me because I think that's where we're positioning ourselves. We're a library service. We don't have a building, we are predominantly online. So I guess in that context, when you talk about service and servants, and I just think there's a bit more nuance. So I'd be kind of interested to hear where exactly you're coming from on that, or a bit more on that. Might be for dinner, but.
Good challenge. Thank you, Kate. It's not black and white, to be fair. And yeah, I suppose we could all find ways in where service is good. I just think generally, though, partnership is better, as is how I put it. And I don't, what we do can be called service, but I'm just not convinced it has to be. And I'm just not sure that does us a great amount of good. Even though, as you say, there is a paradigm of service-oriented libraries. In a way, it's kind of known we do service. So I'm just not sure how much value it adds to use that terminology. I think there are better terms, and maybe others would prefer to comment on that as well.
Gobnait?
I'd certainly be with John on that. I think concentrating on service aspect kind of diminishes what we're doing, and I think getting some kind of a partnership approach would be far more beneficial for the library.
Yeah, I guess it's about service seeming a bit passive, and maybe we just need to be more proactive. And what I said is, getting out there, and the collaboration. But not just with the other professional services, and the academics and researchers, but with the students, and that co-creation that we can do with the students is going to be so important.
Okay, so just in front, yes, thanks, Monica.
And thank you all. That was really, really interesting. I have a question for Alison. One of your tips was around getting familiar with the finances side of things. Now, I do have experience managing budgets, but when I look at the annual reports, financial reports for the university, it's really dense and hard to get your head around if you're not a finance manager. Do you have any tips for how to start making sense of all of that?
I see you now. I couldn't see you for a minute. Tips on how to get your head around the detail of the university level finance. Well, at my university, again, it's about partnership. I think that's going to be the word. It's partnership with the finance department. I've got they work in a sort of business partnership model. And, I don't try to, I think I respect their profession, and they can interpret things for me. And by doing that together, we support each other. But I actually invest quite a lot of time with them, and making sure that they do understand the strategy of the library and what it is that we do. Really invest that time, because they don't always get it. But once they do, they're your greatest ally. And so I don't think that you don't have to be really knowledgeable about every single thing. You also might have deputy that's the real forte. I've got one deputy who likes spreadsheets really much. And so, let them get on and do that as a leader is what I would say. So it's a sort of multi-professional partnership approach, in my view.
Over there, please. Could you say who you are? Sorry, I should ask.
Sure. Joanna Archibald, or CSI. A question for Alison there. Obviously, the reports and stuff are fantastic, and I think probably you'll get more people reading them now as well, which is very useful for everybody. On the action learning piece that you talk about, particularly where you were talking about approaching the professional associations for other key areas that academic librarians would find themselves working with operationally, estates IT, could you talk about what the sell was like to those professional organisations about getting involved in this in the first place? Was it a hard sell? Was there particular stuff that you talked about that really resonated with them, or anything like that?
Well, actually, the facilitated action learning sets were already in existence for a couple of those associations. So I think HR and finance were already doing some. And so it was actually quite easy for us just to ask if we could get involved. What worried me a little bit was that they hadn't thought of they hadn't thought of SCONUL in the first instance. And so again, it's that thing about the libraries being not necessarily seen as a strategic part of what the university does. But obviously once we had put ourselves forward, they were delighted to have us on board. And we've had a few of our SCONUL members actually go through those facilitated action learning sets now. I mean, those have got cost to them. I think they cost about £500 for several meetings, and they've got a professional facilitator, but everyone that's done them, whichever sector they're in, has found them very, very useful. Is that what you were asking about in terms of the other associations, or was it in terms of the individuals?
Yeah, no, it was the associations.
Yeah.
I was just interested, as you say, it is no surprise in lots of ways to people here that we weren't thought about. But I was just keen to see, was there a big push that a pitch you had to do to them, or was it like, were they like, oh yeah, of course?
I mean, once we'd have suggested it, it was an open door.
Yeah.
They see it as being more powerful because it is those four things. I wondered when I was coming over, whether there were some things about the SCONUL leadership work that we did that that CONUL might want to mirror, because I don't know whether you've got the estates, the finance, the HR associations here in Ireland that you could reach out to and maybe have something similar. But I think that's a really powerful thing, to understand what it is to be an estates manager. If you've got a space project that you're working on with them, it makes a real difference.
Yeah, if I might, just on the space between John and Kate, when John is talking about student success, I think that there's something there coming from a service, as in a customer service, and we've heard talk about students as customers in terms of people taking that approach to the way they think about service. So when you're talking about student success, that's about the integration of the whole student and the whole services across college, relating back to the student so that they're feeling comfortable and know where to go and all that. And that kind of all relates into success as well. So I think there might be kind of angles on that could kind of catch both sides there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Maybe just one thing just to say briefly. There's another word begins with S and ends in E, as in surprise. And I just sometimes think we need to think about that one. Service does not surprise, whereas partnership maybe makes people think of us a little bit differently. So service exists, but whether we need to trumpet it too much is just the question mark I have.
Okay, one final point over there, please. Thank you.
Hi, Marta Bustillo from University College Dublin. Both Alison and John have talked about having an opinion beyond the library. And I'm a liaison librarian. I sit in my college committees. And sometimes there are a couple of raised eyebrows when you express an opinion that has nothing to do with library services. Can you comment on that? Any tips about that?
Should I just start on that one? Or me, right? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yes, indeed. It's not an easy one to answer. A very good point, Marta. Yeah, I mean, it just shows as well that we beat ourselves up sometimes as well, but actually some of our administrators are not necessarily very enlightened or very far ahead of us either. So, I think we've got to take account of that. However, we shouldn't be held back by it either, but maybe that is a factor in it as well.
I think it's something that you have to, you don't want to be in their face, do you? And tramping over other people's areas of expertise. It's so important that you respect that, just as you would like them to respect your professional knowledge and understanding. And, I think that question about do you need to be a librarian to be the director of a university library is so interesting, because so many of the things that you need are generic. But I would say, that you do. I would like everybody to respect the skills and the knowledge that we have. So I think you do need to tread quite carefully. I understand that. But I totally and wholeheartedly agree with John that we shouldn't be apologetic. And why shouldn't we have an opinion about things that are happening in the university? And sometimes we are really well placed to know more about the organisation than anybody else, because we're the ones that are dealing with nearly every part of it. So I suppose that how you mitigate for those is what I said about building the relationship outside of the official committee meetings. So once you've done that, they perhaps won't be so eyebrow raising when you do speak actually at the committee. But that's just my thought on it.
Thanks.
Okay, so do any of our speakers have anything else they'd like to add before we finish? No, we're done? Okay, well, on behalf of everyone, we've now learned that the library is not a problem, which is a problem. So thank you very much to Gobnait, to Jane, to John, and to Alison. Thank you.